Welcome to Meet the Press Now. I'm Kristen Welker. As economists, businesses, consumers, and investors react to an alarming series of developments tied to the U.S. economy and the president's shocking reaction to a sluggish jobs report. The trading day just finishing up with markets closing down all across the board as stocks continue to lose momentum after recently hitting new highs. The market pullback today coming after the Labor Department reported that the U.S. economy created just 73,000 new jobs in July. It also reported steep downward revisions to May and June's job figures, revealing that just 33,000 new jobs were created during those 2 months. 250,000 fewer jobs than initially reported. The revised figures show the worst hiring slump since the pandemic. President Trump reacted to the numbers by firing the head of the agency that produces the jobs report, baselessly accusing the agency of manipulating jobs numbers for political purposes. The president posting on social media just moments ago, quote, "In my opinion, today's jobs numbers were rigged in order to make the Republicans and me look bad." Now, we should note that the president has repeatedly praised prior jobs numbers when they showed stronger than expected gains. And the Bureau of Labor Statistics commissioner was confirmed in an overwhelmingly bipartisan vote just last year. She was also backed by then Senator J.D. Vance. The president's sudden firing could raise major questions about potential political interference around vital government economic data. And it all comes as the president also lashed out once again at Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, demanding he lower interest rates, even as other administration officials today tried to urge calm.
The downward revisions to May and June are not great. A lot of that was due to quirks of a statistical process called seasonal adjustment, about 60% of it due to changing seasonal factors and things like incorrectly capturing teachers. But what that means is that most of those jobs will appear in other months of the year.
The disappointing jobs report coming just hours after the Trump administration formalized sweeping new tariffs on dozens of U.S. trading partners that if fully implemented, would put trade barriers at their highest levels since the Great Depression. I'm joined now by NBC News White House correspondent Yamiche Alcindor, as well as CNBC economics editor Jeff Cox. Yamiche, let me start with you. This stunning news, the president dismissing, of course, the head of the labor statistics. Talk to me, take me inside your conversations with sources. What are they saying to you about that move?
Well, I just talked to a senior White House official who said that President Trump fired the head of Bureau of Labor Statistics because he believes that she was essentially cooking the books, that she was manipulating numbers. And the president also posted online saying that, in particular, the July job numbers, which was disappointing, about 73,000 jobs, it said was created in July, was specifically created in order to hurt Republicans. So that is the White House stance. They also told me, that senior White House official, that the president had been eyeing firing this leader of the Bureau of Labor Statistics for some time, saying that he had been attacking these numbers even back when he was running for president. It is true that we've looked up some sound in August where he was claiming that unemployment numbers and labor numbers were rigged. That being said, that White House official also conceded that the president has been liking the job numbers that he's been seeing. And as a result, he essentially deferred firing her until he saw this report and also saw the revisions that were happening in May and June. They had to be revised way down, about 258,000 jobs revised. And the president said that was sort of it. He wanted to fire her now. Now, we already have some responses from union leaders, including the president of a union that represents the Department of Labor. I want to read to you part of that statement. It says, President Trump's attack on the Bureau of Labor Statistics and his call to fire the longtime federal worker who leads the agency over today's publication of employment data is outrageous and irresponsible. The civil servants at the Bureau of Labor Statistics are not political actors. The statement goes on to say they are professionals committed to producing accurate, independent data, regardless of who is in power. Now, of course, the big question is who's going to be in that position. A White House official telling me that the president wants someone who's going to be supportive of him and his goals. Kristen.
Jeff, let me turn to you. Let's talk about who the Commissioner of Labor Statistics is. What is the job description? And she was expected to be in this role until 2028, it's my understanding, and part of the length of that tenure to take politics out of these positions, correct?
Yeah, ironic as it is, Erica McIntyre is holding a job right now that has been a punching bag for Republicans for quite a while now. I would go back to even the Obama administration when Republican officials were actually accusing the BLS of the opposite of what Trump is accusing them for. They were saying they were actually inflating the numbers while Obama was president. This has been going on for a long time. It went on through Trump's first term, and it's supposed to be a non-political body. There's another important point to make here. I mean, the BLS isn't just in charge of the jobs numbers. They're in charge of a whole slew of other really important economic reports, like the Consumer Price Index, which is the main inflation gauge, import-export prices, just a whole slew of other reports that are relied upon for policymakers to make decisions, including those at the Fed. So turning that process into a potential just political appointee, it really has rankled the nerves of some of the folks that I've spoken to, and it really jeopardizes the credibility of what is a very important job.
Yamiche, how is the White House responding to that criticism that is undoubtedly coming its way? You have Lisa Murkowski saying, when you don't like the message, fire the messenger. So already some Republicans criticizing this move as well.
Well, right now, the White House is standing by the president's decision, saying that it shouldn't be a surprise that the president doesn't want a Biden political appointee in this job that they see as so important. But you also have to, I think, really stress that this is supposed to be, as you said, an independent body. This isn't supposed to be about politics. And the White House is making it pretty clear that they want someone who is supportive of President Trump. And they're, again, accusing the now former Commissioner of Bureau of Labor Statistics of being political and trying to hurt the president with these numbers. There, of course, isn't any evidence so far that we've seen of that. But the president here really doubling down. He's put up a number of posts online, so he is not backing down from this decision, Kristen.
Jeff, let's talk about the raw data that we got today, these softer than expected jobs numbers. What do you make of it? What does it say about the overall health of the economy and the fact that May and June were revised down significantly?
Well, Krista, it tells us that the labor market is at pretty much stall speed right now. Now, historically, this has been a very bad thing for the economy. When we start to see job numbers just start to decrease, not go negative, but even just start to decrease at a steady pace, which we have seen this year, that has always foretold recessions. There are basically no exceptions to that throughout the entire U.S. economic history. So that's a really ugly thing. I have talked to more and more economists today. They are using the R word. I think still the base case is not that we're going to go into recession, but the odds of it seem to be increasing. There's more and more uncertainty about the impact that tariffs are going to have. Tariff-sensitive industries were especially hurt in this report today. And in fact, industries that generally benefit positively from tariffs also didn't do very well. So the story here is not a particularly good one. I would just note one more thing about the revisions. We remember last year, during the Biden administration, the BLS announced what they call the benchmark revisions that go back a year, and they showed that over 800,000 fewer jobs were created during the Biden administration just for a 12-month period. So there's that. These revisions have gone on for quite a long time. They're not new.
So let me ask you about what could happen next, Jeff, in the wake of these jobs figures, because, of course, the big news earlier this week was the Fed's decision to hold rates steady. Does this increase the chances that Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell could, in fact, lower rates in September when we next hear from the Fed?
Interestingly enough, yesterday markets were pricing a very low probability of a September rate cut, just based on some of the comments that Powell made at his news conference on Wednesday. That changed dramatically today. I think the last I saw, the market implied probability for a rate cut was somewhere around 80 or 85% in September. So markets really did switch their tact on that. Of course, we have another wild card that just came in. I broke story just a few minutes ago that Adriana Kugler has resigned her position from the Fed Board of Governors. So that adds another wild card into the policy mix.
You took my follow-up. I was going to ask you about that as well. You're absolutely right. Yamiche, let me turn to you on that and just the broader question, because, of course, Fed Chair Jerome Powell doesn't have that much longer left in his term. President Trump has repeatedly said he actually doesn't plan to replace him earlier, despite the fact that he has criticized him steadily. President Trump's been very clear he has names in mind, right, Yamiche?
It's remarkable because the president is saying he's not going to fire Jerome Powell, but he's like, look, I already got a couple people on my list. I already have people that I want to be in that job. So it'll be very interesting to see who the president chooses. It's also going to be interesting to see what that person does. Is that person going to be someone that is just going to follow the President Trump's lead and cut interest rates maybe every quarter or whenever the president asks? Or is that person going to be someone who might get into the job and do an interest rate cut at the beginning, but then afterwards end up in a position where they're fighting with President Trump, much like Jerome Powell? Because I think I always have to remind folks, our viewers, President Trump, he renominated Jerome Powell, so he could have taken him out of this position, and he kept him in this position in 2017.
A really important data point to remind people of, Yamiche. Jeff and Yamiche, thank you for a great conversation and reporting and starting us off this afternoon. Joining me now is Everett Eissenstat. He is the former deputy director of the National Economic Council during President Trump's first term. Mr. Eissenstat, thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. I, of course, have to start off by getting your reaction to the breaking news, the fact that President Trump announced that he is, in fact, firing the Commissioner for Labor Statistics, what is supposed to be a non-political position.
Well, I think the president has made it clear that when he isn't satisfied with the performance of an individual or an agency head, he's certainly not willing to let them remain, and has fired many individuals who he thought had not been meeting his expectations. So it's not out of character for him to do this.
But based on what you have seen, is there any evidence, is there any indication that she was not accurately reporting the jobs numbers?
Nothing that I have seen, but then again, I would not be in a position to know that. I do think it is frustrating for him that he has worked very, very hard on the tax cuts, the deregulatory agenda, really had some incredible legislative wins recently on Capitol Hill. And then, of course, he's rapidly implementing his tariff agenda. I think it's frustrating for him to see this data come out at a time like this, and that may be part of this.
Fair enough. Frustrating as it may be, the numbers are the numbers. Does a move like this not undercut people's confidence in these numbers, in government agencies, quite frankly?
I think people see it. I can certainly understand that perspective, and I think people see it both ways. I mean, there are large groups of people that have always wondered, how these numbers are being made, and the revisions are very common, as you noted. So I think it's going to be an individual perspective on this. I do think that there's opportunity to find out, right, to look back at these numbers and see how they're processed, how the data was used, and to come up with a decision about, well, were they manipulated or were they not manipulated?
Let me ask you this. I mean, have you ever seen any hard evidence of Bureau of Labor Statistics actually being manipulated? As we've discussed, historically speaking, there have been accusations flying back and forth, but have you ever seen any evidence that that's actually happened?
Have I personally? No, I have not.
Okay. Let's talk about what we've heard from President Trump. I mean, to some extent, he undercuts his own argument because in the past, he has praised BLS. He said just in April, great job numbers, far better than expected. It's already working. Hang tough. We can't lose. So given the fact that he was just praising the BLS numbers, doesn't that sort of undercut his argument that now they're being rigged in some way?
Well, look, when he's pleased with the numbers, obviously he's going to say these numbers are great. And when he's not, he's going to point out that he doesn't like the outcome, that he doesn't like the numbers. So I'm not surprised by this.
Let me just finally get your reaction to Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. She just said this, quote, "When you don't like the message, fire the messenger." She was asked if she can still trust the jobs number. She said, no, that's the problem. And when you fire people, it makes you trust them even less. Do you agree with Senator Murkowski to some extent?
Look, there's a lot we don't know. So let's let the whole story be found before we make a conclusion that this was the right or wrong move. But obviously it was the president's prerogative to do this. He wasn't satisfied with her performance, and therefore he made this decision.
Is it fair to say, I mean, based on the fact that you've never seen any actual wrongdoing, do you still have outstanding questions about what happened? Would you like to get to the bottom of why the president made this decision?
I often wonder why many government decisions are made the way they are, so I'm always curious to get to the bottom of them, yes.
Okay, let's turn to the raw data now, the numbers. This data point that the job market in May and June was the worst it's been since the pandemic. It was revised down. What, in your view, is the overall health of the economy right now?
Well, look, I think the economy is adjusting. I mean, we've had a lot of really significant economic stimulus and actions taken over the past 6 or 7 months. And this is really big stuff. If you think about on the international trade side with the tariffs, this is an unprecedented recalibration of the international trading system. And that's going to have effects. And I think, companies and governments can be very resilient, but they like predictability. They like to have certainty. They like to have clarity. So perhaps this is a bit of a pause where they're taking into account and digesting all this economic stimulus and thinking about, okay, now that I'm seeing how this is going to play out, I'm more comfortable making a decision about investing here and hiring here. So perhaps this is just a blip, and we will see as these tariffs, now that we have clarity there, we might see more growth and more investment.
I have to ask you about the R word, because you just heard Jeff Cox say that he's been talking to more and more economists who, in the wake of these jobs numbers, now that the president's announced sweeping tariffs against some 60 countries, of course, they don't go into effect until next week, that the chances of a recession have now gone up. Do you think that's accurate?
Look, I'm not a trained economist, so I can't say. I do think that with the past 6, 7 months on the trade agenda, there's been a lot of new information to take in. I think we're reaching a point now of stability. That stability is good for business. It's good for investment. I think it will help companies make good decisions about where to invest, what sectors to invest, when to hire. So I'm confident the economy can remain strong. It's been very resilient through some incredibly difficult times. And I believe that a lot of the actions that the president is taking are going to create economic growth, and we will remain a resilient economy.
All right. Everett Eissenstat, thank you so much for being here on a really big day for the economy. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.